All right, let's do it live on a Tuesday edition of the program. Welcome into Cleveland Browns Daily. I am merely Beau. He is the great Z. He is back and better than ever. And boy, do we have things to talk about, kid.
Yes, we do. Obviously, yesterday after the show went off the air, I saw a little notification all of a sudden. Reports. The Browns jumping into the mix here. And I can tell you, I'm back in the building this morning. Ran into a couple luminaries. There's Jenks in his free agent best. Oh God, he's doing.
What's he wearing?
Super Bowl day. He's got a window pane blazer with a nice white
color.
It is it's a blue with a little purple in it. I'd say purple in the window pane maybe. And then it's got a nice white pocket square jeans, and then he's wearing these like very nice looking like dress sneakers that have been really on point lately. No, he's very tremendous. He knows it's free agency.
Is it a darker blue?
It is
indigo,
darker blue.
A light blue?
It's a darker blue. It's a darker blue with the window paint. I can't tell from here if it's either like a maroon or a purple. Maybe it's a nice Cabernet Sauvignon from Napa Valley, circa 2014. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
What a star.
Nonetheless.
Absolute star.
So John Johnson III coming to the Browns reportedly. We can't, obviously nothing can be official, although it has been reported.
Many times it's been reported.
Many times. And, this guy had the number 4 coverage grade amongst all safeties in the NFL. He's one of the surest tacklers. He never gets penalties. He was a team captain. He called plays for that defense. And I could just say this. I ran to some luminaries here in the building today on my way in, and one who will be very involved on obviously that side of the ball. Oh, I forgot to mention, he's also wearing underneath this blazer a Carolina blue V-neck sweater with his white button-down collar peeking out underneath it. That's right.
Jeez.
Yeah. No,
he layered it up.
Yeah, we're not messing.
Gosh.
It's free agency. John Johnson III.
Oh my.
We're not messing around.
Gosh.
He's got one layer for every safety that's going to be on the field for the Browns next year. He's got the jacket.
He's going to have
got
some
the
sort
V-neck.
of a swacket when he walks out of there too. That's happening.
Just tremendous. But I ran into who I would call a very prominent member of the Browns defense. And to describe the joy on his face would be reminiscent of that of a kid on, Christmas morning. And you open the gift, and it's exactly what you wanted. The big man came through.
Yep.
And so I think we are going to see a defense. You wanted to be faster on defense. You wanted to be more athletic on defense. You wanted to be more versatile on defense. You will be that. And you're going to have a look where I think this is, again, very preliminary. Johnson's going to be more your free safety. Ronnie Harrison is going to be more your strong safety. And obviously there's interchangeable. And then Grant is going to be your rover, I'll call it, where he's going to be in the slot sometimes. He's going to be deep sometimes. He's going to be in the box sometimes. He's going to be blitzing as he did so well at LSU. But so you could see a 3 safety alignment with Johnson deep, Harrison strong, Grant in the slot. And I think we're going to be able to do a lot of things with that, And there's still work to be done, but Pro Football Focus, by this one move alone, gave us the biggest jump and win potential off of all of free agency. We only signed one guy. That's how good John Johnson III is.
We were really bad in the back end last year defensively.
Yeah.
Really bad. And that can't be argued. It cost us games. It cost us, especially on third down. There's so many times you couldn't get off the field, and the coverage just wasn't there. And you didn't have enough playmakers back there. And it was such an incredible gulf that when Ronnie Harrison came in, we were like, oh, my gosh, look at what happens when you have a guy who does this. So now all of a sudden you have Harrison and you have Johnson in the mix, and you have Grant Delpit being back healthy, and you can use Delpit in that Avenger role as you described. It also provides a warm blanket if Delpit isn't back to the level that you hope that he's back to, coming off of a very serious injury. You are now set. If Delpit takes a little longer, you now have Johnson and Harrison, and you feel very good about what you have at safety. It cannot be underappreciated. It can't be appreciated enough how important Johnson was to what the Rams did defensively. So you illustrated this. He is a brilliant football player. So he called their defense. He was one of the leaders of their defense. He was beloved in their building. They just can't pay everybody. It's really that simple. He's beloved in their building, and they absolutely hate to see him go. And so that impact will be tremendous on us, and it will be felt immediately in the back end of our defense.
You've said it very well. I think that there is a lot of confidence in this building right now around Grant Delpit, but you're right. In the event that you didn't have that, it would be something that you would look at for sure. But it does appear that is something, that they feel good about. But to have this versatility, this flexibility, and you mentioned the leadership that he showed, the fact that he was, a guy who called the plays, was the captain, was respected, was relied upon, that the Browns got more than just his skill set. He is going to be a leader in a very young defensive backfield because, like it or not, Greedy Williams, and the reports on Greedy are excellent. The prognosis is excellent right now. But Greedy Williams, that's a guy that you look at and you say, okay, he'd be playing his second season in the NFL only. Denzel into, now multiple seasons in the NFL, but still on his rookie contract. Ronnie Harrison still on his rookie contract. Grant still on his rookie contract. John Johnson's the only guy that had the ability to even is playing beyond their rookie contract yet. So it is a young defensive backfield, and to have a leader like that on the back end, I think is massive for this team. You've got leaders up front and veterans up front, accomplished players up front, and I think you're still going to add probably another one given who is off the board already at the defensive end position in this draft. But I think it's a signing that, again, was said to me, this is much, much more about football, more than just what he does on the field. And I wanted to just, remind everybody that this is a guy that our Joe Woods got to see multiple times with the 49ers in 2019. So he played against him and knows what he brings to the table when he was the DB coach. And that, to me, says, all you need to know. We've got a scout up close in person. I know that Joe's got some relationships with people who have coached John Johnson. So we got excellent, what I would call, intel about this group and have a very good idea on exactly what was happening there.
All right, so let's move on to the other kind of the question that's out there. And you and I both said going into free agency that the biggest thing that needed to be addressed was defensive end opposite Miles. That is something that you thought would be number one on the priority list. We also said, and we laid this out for you, there were two paths for this. So there was either the Carl Lawson path, the Trey Hendrickson path, those type of younger guys paying them pretty competitive and good money in many instances, Shaq Barrett, that type of stuff. The other path was a veteran player on a 1 or 2 year deal, and then you draft at 26 the eventual long-term running mate for Myles Garrett in a draft that is incredibly deep. And you have these two parallel paths you can work on. And what I would say, and I know that there's, why didn't we want this guy? And we had a lot of fun with Lawson and honestly would have loved to have had him here. Not at that price. And what I would come back to is the word of the day is discipline. This front office is not going to get emotional, which leads to getting into bidding wars.
Nope.
That's not what they do. They assign what they want. They assign a value to it. If it goes beyond that value, they move on to another solution to the problem. And there are many solutions to problems. And I just outlined the way that you can attack defensive end in many different ways. Would you have liked to kick the tires? And we've kicked the tires on Ngakoue in the past. And there were reports that we'd be in on Barrett if he ever became a free agent. And certainly J.J. Watt. Yes, of course, if it works, if the money's right. But you will not see this front office be emotional. You will not see this front office get into bidding wars, and I think that's what's happened at defensive end. This is not a pay attention to the scores. This is just simply a connecting the dots, and I think I probably is in line with the thinking here.
You are. They are not emotional. They have as we said, they're prepared. They've got a plan and a process to implement the plan, and they're not going to deviate from that. One other note real quickly on John Johnson, if the reports are true, is the Browns did a tremendous job of loading this contract where it's only a small cap hit this year when the cap is low, and then the cap hit gets bigger the following 2 seasons when the cap is going to go up in a major way. So that was smart.
Reportedly
again,
$5 million this year.
For the first year,
yep,
and then it balloons up the next 2 seasons when you're going to have more room, and it won't have as much of an impact on your cap. That's a great job by Andrew Berry. Chris Cooper, who has been here and has done a great job on the contracts the last few years with Conklin and Hooper, et cetera. we have one of the best front offices in the NFL in that regard. And we are not going to, as you said, we are not going to deviate from the plan and the prices that we feel a player is worth being compensated. And that's why, you've seen wild money. I mean, if you're the Bengals, you let Carl Lawson go and then paid Hendrickson the same money that Lawson got. Now, it's different in terms of the guarantees, and maybe that's a structure issue that Mike Brown didn't want to get into, but you're seeing things around the league that are A-plus money for maybe B-plus talent. And what the Browns have done, and how about this report? When's the last time we heard this? John Johnson reportedly turned down significantly more money elsewhere to come play for the Cleveland Browns.
Right.
When have we been in that position? Again, symbolic of the tide turning. And we'll get into, because there are still plenty of defensive of edge rushers that are out there to pair, as you pointed out. And we laid out for you the mini pass. Are you going to go in? You're not going to get a bidding war, but were you able to get one of these younger guys? Or do you get somebody that's a stopgap and you draft somebody along the way? Or you say, you know what? It's not like we were in a bad spot last year with Olivier Vernon. Can we find this year's Olivier Vernon and we can address it again? Curtis Weaver's like our draft pick this year. Maybe 5-star takes a leap. But we've got a lot of things that we can do, I think, at that position still. And I know there are a lot of people that are people are getting nervous. There are going to be great bargains coming in free agency soon. And I think over the next week or two, you're going to see this team continue to shape this roster in very critical ways that will be impactful for this season and potentially beyond at very good rates. And so far, that's what you'd say about what Andrew Berry has done here all along, is that he has added quality talent to this team at a price tag that makes a heck of a lot of sense.
He's never gonna put anything. He's never gonna operate from a position of being desperate. That's how you make mistakes. We've done this before. There are countless examples, and you were here for some of these. Certainly, all I know is winning, of course. But certainly where we have overpaid for players and had to get them here, those days are gone. That's over. That's not how this operation is going to work going forward. It's an attractive place to play. It's a young roster with a ton of talent that can win now. It is in a window to win now, and you are not going to be over-leveraged chasing and getting into bidding wars. It's just not what's going to happen. And the fact that, and we talked about this a lot, guys, in January and February, defensive end is an incredibly deep talent pool of free agents. It's an incredibly deep talent pool in the draft. You could get a major impact guy if you wanted sitting right at 26. All these quarterbacks are going to go before you. That helps you. A lot of receivers could go before you. That helps you. Some offensive linemen. There could be a rush on offensive linemen. That helps you. You could very well get a guy who is a top 10 talent at 26 at defensive end, because guess what? All these teams that sign these free agents at defensive end, maybe now they're not looking for one in the first round. So someone could fall to you, and that is operating from a position of strength. And if you've paid attention at all to what Andrew Berry has done and Paul DePodesta has done and Kevin Stefanski have done since they've been here, they operate from a position of strength, and they put themselves in the best position to succeed, and I think you'll see that here too. Did I want to see Carl Lawson pop up? Yeah, of course. Of course. Would have loved it. Would have been great to have him opposite Miles. Of course. But not at the number. That is what they determined. That number was a price too rich. And I'm not suggesting necessarily it was between us and the Jets for Lawson. I have no idea. But what I think is a very safe thing that you can say is at that price, we weren't going down that road. Now, you go on to plan B. Maybe it's a veteran guy, and maybe it's a draft pick, and maybe you skin the cat that way. But those are the options that Andrew Berry always has at his disposal. Multiple.
Right, and that is exactly the way that he attacks these things. You've got to have multiple paths, multiple plans, and I think for the Browns now, you have really gotten yourself in a situation where you have solidified and given your defensive coordinator. And remember, you know who the defensive coordinator was when Joe Woods was the secondary coach in Denver? It was Wade Phillips. Then Joe Woods becomes the defensive coordinator in Denver when Wade Phillips goes where in 2017? That's right. He went to the Rams. So for the first 3 years of his career, Wade Phillips was a defensive coordinator with John Johnson. So do you think that we know exactly what we're getting there and that this is a guy that's going to allow Joe Woods to play his defense exactly how he wants it? Yes, you would be correct about that. So now what else does he want? He wants a guy up front that can help you get after the quarterback. I think that the Browns feel we need 2 edge rushers and a guy that can kick inside and get after the quarterback. That's what you can do. So there are still a ton of options out there of guys that have done this in a 4-3 defense in their careers. And so what we're going to look at is who some of these people could be. Who are some of the people that could come in for the Browns? Because I think you're going to be able to get somebody at a pretty good price point now. I think some of that big money has dried up, and so now you're going to look at some of these names, and you're say, okay, who are some of the guys that maybe we bring in at this time that can give us some play along this line and help us get to the quarterback? Because that's really where it is now. Now we're all about getting to the quarterback at this time for the Cleveland Browns, because the back end you're feeling good about. And frankly, let's not forget, there's been a lot of talk about corner. It makes a lot of sense, both outside and in the slot. I think with these 3 safeties and with the physicality that Grant brings and the physicality that Ronnie brings, I think you're going to see the Browns in a lot of situations and obvious pass situations where you could have 4 down linemen, Jacob Phillips running around there with his speed in coverage if he gets more comfortable with that, or even a veteran that you bring in to fill that role. And then you could see 3 corners and the 3 safeties, with one of those safeties serving as a dime linebacker, which makes us fast. It makes us able to cover all kinds of different looks from opponents and still be able to be stout enough in the run game if need be, because of the physicality that Grant and Ronnie bring and the tackling that John Johnson, frankly, brings to the safety position.
I was going to say, you've seen the hit on DK Metcalf this morning, right?
What am I hard seeing?
Yeah, it's fun. It's going to be fun. He's going to look great in the uniform, and he has. I've already seen some of the mocks. I'm sure you have as well, because I know you're not hard to seeing. So this is an exciting time to get a guy that you want there in the back end and really make this defense what Joe Woods wants it to be. Those were your OBM Hot Topics. Ohio Business Machines, preferred computer provider of the Cleveland Browns. For all the X's and O's for your office, you can call 216-485-2000 or visit ohiobusinessmachines.com. Coming up next, we'll take a look at the wild, crazy spending in free agency, especially what has happened in New England. Lindsey Thiry will join us coming up at the bottom of the hour. She's the Rams reporter. Give us an idea of what Johnson is all about on and off the field. Our good buddy Dan Graziano will join us at 2 o'clock. Loaded up for you kids on a free agent Tuesday edition of Cleveland Browns Daily, 850 ESPN Cleveland. Winter weather just devastating on your home, which means it's time for you to call the pros at Perfect Power Wash. Dirt, mold, algae, it accumulates on the exterior of your home and it leads to costly damages. PPW's safe process professional techs help remove these contaminants to keep your house looking protected. Call the pros today. It's so easy. 888-860-WASH. You save 10%. Take advantage of the priority scheduling. The whole process couldn't be easier. One call does it all. I've done it. It's awesome. The professionals at PPW will provide you a free quote. They will schedule your service. If you want a perfectly clean home this spring, call the pros, 888-860-WASH, or visit perfectpowerwash.com. Remember, the early bird gets the worm on this one, guys. They get the savings. Call 888-860-WASH today using the promo code BEAU. You save 10%. When you are building an NFL team, Z, what you first have to do is win your division. Put yourself in a position to win your division.
Yep.
Our division had an interesting first 24 hours of free agency. The Steelers officially losing Bud Dupree to Tennessee. There were reports that we were among the finalists for that one. He ends up going to Tennessee. The Baltimore Ravens certainly buoy the inside of their interior, their offensive line with Kevin Zeitler, former Brown, of course, and Bengal. He's making the tour of the division. He goes to Baltimore to fit there. And then the Cincinnati Bengals, it feels to me like they panicked a little bit. And to me, the one thing that they really needed to do was improve the interior of their offensive line, and that has yet to happen.
Yeah, they haven't addressed it, which is kind of a surprising thing when you look at what the Bengals have done. And you go in and you say, okay, you let Carl Lawson go, who goes, 3-year, $45 million with the Jets? You bring in Trey
$30 million
Hendrickson,
guaranteed,
4 years, 60, including 32 in the first 2 years. It appears William Jackson III is going to be leaving, and you signed Chidobe Awuzie on a 3-year deal. So you've let your top two free agents were a corner and a pass rusher
that's right.
By all accounts, or the majority of accounts, those two, Jackson and Lawson, are better than Hendrickson and Awuzie. And yet that's the swap they made, and they have addressed nothing of note on the offensive line thus far. And
correct.
That was a little bit surprising to me in terms of how they got there. Now, as for the Baltimore Ravens, my man Sags walking through the building. Yes, gotta love to see that.
Just striding.
Striding, yes. It said, yeah. You see that, John Johnson? How you doing? Zeitler's a great signing for them. He is a perfect signing, and his apparently discussions with Marshall Yonda led to that. They needed some help on that line. They are going to be run-oriented. They are scary with Lamar and Dobbins and Gus Edwards. Zeitler, that's just a perfect signing for them. Now, Judon gone, but McPhee and Bowser, they ended up, remember, we had somebody from the Ravens, and I said, I bet Bowser's the one who ends up staying. They signed McPhee cheap, Bowser 4-year, $22 million. And so they've kept of their top 5 edge rushers, Ngakoue gone, Judon gone, but they bring back McPhee and Bowser. Nonetheless, that is a significant downgrade for them defensively. Zeitler, big upgrade offensively. They have downgraded significantly defensively.
Yeah, they certainly have. Just in terms of what's happened in the last couple of hours on that front, there was a lot of chatter around Von Miller potentially being available. That's not going to happen. He restructures. He stays in Denver. There was some talk about Shaq Griffin being in the mix or would have an interest in him. He goes to Jacksonville on a deal to return the native Floridian, returning home to Florida to play for the Jaguars. The New England Patriots have been far and away the busiest team. It's really stunning. In the last 24 hours, about $227 million they've given out. In the previous 10 seasons, $359. So it's just a remarkable thing.
Unbelievable.
Isn't that an amazing one?
It's a great stat.
And they're not done. According to Glazer, they're not done. That they could break the record for most money ever spent in free agency. It's a wild thing that they're doing. They added Hunter Henry today after adding Jonas Smith yesterday. They paid Nelson Aguilar a lot of money, which was surprising to me. I think very clearly what I think they're going to try to do is zig when everybody else is zagging, and they're going to try to be ultra physical, run the ball, run with Cam. They're going to have to draft a running back because they don't have anybody back there that scares you right now. And they'll use the 2 tight ends, and hopefully Aguilar can get deep for them. But they've spent a ton of money, and I don't know how much better they got.
I think they've gotten a lot better. I think they've gotten a lot better. I think their ability to run
better than Buffalo?
Not better than Buffalo, but definitely in the wild card mix, which I do not think that they were in. They're in the playoff mix right now. Hunter Henry that was the name that as soon as I saw, I said he's going to be a New England Patriot. Then I was a little bit concerned when they signed Jonnu Smith, but my concerns were quickly, allayed when Hunter Henry signed there as well. So what they're going to do, they signed, you mentioned Aguilar. They also signed Kendrick Bourne. So their base personnel skill position group just is completely done. It's going to be Henry. He's going to be the inline tight end blocker who can also catch more of a Gronk. Jonnu Smith is going to be the one that they flex out, move around more like Aaron Hernandez when they had the two of them. Aguilar is going to stretch the defense, and Kendrick Bourne's going to be that number 2 possession type of a receiver. And that's the offense that they're going to run. And Bourne could do things on end arounds, et cetera. He's not obviously as good as Deebo Samuel, but they gave him $7 a year. I mean, I think that surprised a lot of people, but they are going to run it, and you let Cam work the middle of the field, which he does very well, and use Aguilar to create space for everybody to operate in that offense. It
seemed to me like they overpaid for a lot of these guys. Like Henry and Smith were paid like premium tight ends. Hunter, and I know he's had injuries, but I don't even know if he's had a 700-yard receiving year in his career. And they paid him at a premium. They paid both those guys at a premium.
They did.
So so I don't know. It all feels a little desperate from their end to me in terms of the amount of money that they've given some of these guys. And it feels like Belichick watched his guy win a Super Bowl, and I'm not going to. I can't let that happen again.
Yeah,
let that happen.
That didn't sit well with him. They're in a very competitive division. The Bills are going to be the favorites. The Dolphins were right there with.
If they swing the Deshaun Watson deal,
then absolutely. I do think of the opt-outs they had last year, a lot were on the defensive side for the Patriots. I do think this makes them a better offense significantly. Hunter Henry's a stud. Jonnu Smith is very good, and Aguilar's going to open things up. He's not going to produce the numbers. Good for him that he cashed in because he has no chance of producing the numbers that he did in Las Vegas that he will this year. But, Cam back in the day, this was a much younger Cam, was pretty darn good with Steve Smith. But we talked about Greg Olsen. He needs the guys in the middle of the field big time. Kendrick Bourne's a physical guy with a very good catch radius. Those three, Bourne, Henry, Smith, are really going to work the middle, and Aguilar's going to be the guy who's going to create space for them and the ground game. I do think that they got better. I think it was expensive. And do I think this puts them in a Super Bowl conversation? Absolutely not. So is it worth it? No.
Yeah, no, it looks like 9-7 to me. Lindsay Theory covers the Rams for ESPN.com, and she will join us on John Johnson coming up next. You listen to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Beau Bishop, Nathan Zegura with you here on a Tuesday edition of Cleveland Browns Daily. And time to head out on that fifth third money line for a visit with Lindsey Theory. Covers the Rams for ESPN's NFL Nation, of course. Lindsey, thank you so much for taking the time. We were thrilled to get John Johnson yesterday. What exactly are we getting in him?
Yeah, you're getting a great guy on the field and off of it. John Johnson is not a name that maybe a lot of people are too familiar with, which is really interesting because he's had a terrific 4 seasons in LA. But he was kind of on the cusp of perhaps a Pro Bowl performances last year, same in 2018. And then you go into the locker room, and he was a cornerstone for the Rams, always available to the media, always with he just has like this infectious way about him where he's got this great spirit, great personality. He is incredibly smart. He was a signal caller for the Rams defense last year. So I think the Browns are going to be really happy when John Johnson gets to Cleveland.
How did we get him? How was he available and somebody that the Rams, because as the guy who was the captain, called plays, how did he get to free agency?
Yeah, the Rams are in a tough spot when it comes to the salary cap. Right now they are in the middle of restructuring some contracts, but they're $31 million over the cap. They have some other pressing needs before you look into their secondary, where obviously they're spending a lot of money on Jalen Ramsey. They've drafted well at safety. And historically speaking, the Rams have not put a premium on defensive backs, obviously that aside from Ramsey. So that's really how John Johnson became available. It came down to no cap space and a serious need to retain a pass rusher. So that's how John Johnson becomes available.
If you were to describe to Browns fans his biggest strength or the biggest asset that he will be for the Cleveland Browns, what would it be?
It's hard to put it on one thing, but I would say communication. He directed what was a pretty complicated secondary this past season. He's clear, he's smart, he knows how to diagnose plays, he knows what's coming. So he is a great director of traffic. I mean, that above all, obviously he is a playmaker. He can make plays there at the safety position, but he is definitely someone that can be leaned upon on any defense.
Lindsey, what is he? We think probably here he'll be at that free safety spot with I'm expecting to know our roster, but Ronnie Harrison would be the strong, and then Grant Delpit, who was our second-round pick last year, kind of flying around making plays in maybe a three-safety look. What was he most comfortable in Los Angeles? Where was he most comfortable?
Yeah, he could play deep. He could play up toward the line, kind of toward in the box. I mean, he's a pretty strong guy. So I don't think that there was any limitation on where you could put him on the field. This last season, I know he was deep quite a bit. The previous season, I think he was in the box a bit more. But I don't think there's any limitation where you could ask him to play and where he wouldn't feel comfortable.
And, you mentioned the leadership, the instincts, the diagnosis, great in coverage. I think he had Pro Football Focus's 4th best coverage grade among any safety in the NFL last year. But this stat, which comes courtesy of Jake Burns, says 3,490 NFL snaps and just 2 penalties in his entire career. That's incredible. And is that something that was talked about much with the Rams?
That wasn't spoken about, and I think probably just taken for granted because, like I mentioned, I mean, John is just such a smart player that he's not going to be out there making dumb mistakes. He's not going to be one of the big conversations I'll always remember him, he talks about being a situational master. So I really think that's where the penalty stat comes into play, is that John is very aware of every situation on the field, and you're not going to catch him getting a dumb pass interference penalty when one doesn't need to be had. Very, like I said, very, very smart player.
And Lindsey, one thing that we've had an issue with here has been just availability. We've had a lot of injuries in our secondary last year, especially, and the last couple of years. Obviously played all 16 games last year, played all 16 games in 2018, played just 6 in 2019. From an injury standpoint, a health standpoint, any red flags there that we don't know about that haven't been well reported?
No, I don't think so. I mean, that 2019 season, obviously, he had that shoulder injury that sidelined him for the year. That was really disappointing to see because he got off to a really fast start in 6 games, had 2 interceptions. So that was a definite momentum killer for him. Otherwise, he has been available the other 3 seasons, every single game. I think back to the injury reports, and I don't know that you ever really saw John Johnson's name pop up on anything. So availability is also one of his strengths.
What kind of, you mentioned, the good leader, et cetera. We are the ones who, fortunately, when he comes here, we're going to get talked to. What kind of a guy is he? What's he like? What's he going to project to our fans? What are they going to get to know? Is he a guy that likes to talk with the media? Is he an open guy? What kind of guy is John Johnson from that regard?
Yeah, you guys are going to love him. I mean, I am selfishly so sad to see him go because writing about the Rams the last 4 years with John here, it's like you could always go to him. He would always provide some sort of color, some sort of flavor to your story. He's got an infectious personality. So I think, he's probably going to be a weekly guest on your guys' radio show, knowing John. So he's somebody that can definitely be dependent on. And I think that teammates really kind of gravitate towards his energy. He's got a fun spirit. He's got a great way about him. So I think the media in particular in Cleveland is really going to like him. And in turn, when all the fans see the personality that he brings, I think people are going to be really, really happy with who John Johnson is, off the field as well as on it.
Lindsay, I know it's always a little dicey when you ask somebody to get into somebody's head and reveal what they're thinking, but there has been reports, and so I'll do that to you, but I won't hold you to any of it. He reports that he did take less to play here, and that this was something that he would have wanted. What is it about this situation that would be that attractive to him? Obviously, we're aware of how young we are and the talent that we are, but obviously a great historic franchise, all of those things. Do you think that is something that would have mattered to him?
I don't know. That's actually the first time I had heard that. I know that he had expressed interest to me in wanting to remain in LA before the free agency negotiation period really got underway. But I can see John. Obviously, he wants to make all the money he can, but he's also a competitor. He wants to go to a good situation. I think after being in a really good situation with the Rams the last 4 seasons, the Browns probably present an opportunity for a team that is right there knocking on the door, ready to go into the postseason. So I would imagine that might have had something to do with it if he indeed did take a little bit less. But again, like you mentioned, I'm not totally inside John Johnson's head.
Sure.
What was his relationship like with Wade Phillips when he was there?
Yeah, I think they had a great relationship. Wade saw something in John where I believe it was 5 games into his rookie season, the Rams let go of a veteran and started John Johnson against the Seattle Seahawks. Wade Phillips had a great way about himself with everybody on the defense. And obviously he saw something in John to put him in there as early as he did.
Yeah, and the reason I asked is that, Wade, before coming to the Rams, was the DC in Denver, and his defensive back coach was Joe Woods, who then took over as the DC in Denver when Wade came to the Rams, and Joe Woods is now our defensive coordinator here with the Browns, and I wonder if that connection maybe played a little bit of a role if he and Wade were close, and Wade, as you said, is the one who put him on the field and got his career off to a very good start.
It very well could be. I didn't connect those dots, but you guys are far more in tune with what's going on in Cleveland and all the different random connections than I am.
Well, that would be if we went on your show. You would be much more in tune with what's going on in L.A. So, that's all.
Yeah, there you go.
But we appreciate it. And, boy, I got to tell you, your enthusiasm for him, we can sense it and feel it. And we all know in this business that there are guys that, stand out to you, that cross your paths. And it seems that John Johnson is one for you. So we're very excited for you joining us on the program to share that with our listeners, but B, that he's coming to the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, no doubt. I will have one eye out watching what the Browns do because John Johnson's a good one, and I feel confident saying that you guys are really going to enjoy having him on your team.
Lindsay, thank you so much for your time today. We greatly appreciate it.
Thanks. Take care.
All right, that's Lindsay Theory, covers the Rams for ESPN. She's joined on the Fifth Third Money Line. Reminder, all guests appear on Cleveland Browns Daily. Do so via the Fifth Third Money Line. Fifth Third Bank, making Cleveland Browns Daily a Fifth Third better. Of course we're going to have John Johnson on here every week. Of course we will. She has no idea how realistic that is. That's done.
That's how it goes.
That's a done deal. Book it.
Yeah, book it.
It'll be like a standing Tuesday segment.
The new Cole.
Tuesdays with John.
Yeah. Tuesdays with John.
That's how that'll go.
By the way, from Josina Anderson, she says, from what I hear, this was at 1:35, so 7 minutes ago, says, from what I hear, the Browns are still monitoring the market at cornerback and defensive line, even as some prospects come off the big board, may let the market cool off just a little. And again, that goes back to what you were talking at the open of the show. This is a group that has their targets, it has multiple paths, and they are locked into what they are willing to pay and for whom, and they're going to let things go. By the way, as names remain on the board, what does that mean? Nobody has met their price yet. So that means their price must go down as the days go on, which allows the Browns, I think, an opportunity to jump in and get some guys at pretty good values. And what's amazing is we haven't really heard anything about the Browns guys. Kendall Lamb, obviously that touchdown, that tutty scored on Tennessee left an indelible impression upon them as he goes for 2 for 8, which great for him. What a great guy, great scenario for him. But that's really all we've heard. And I think some of the Browns players that we want to come back as this continues, maybe the prices and it matches up. Remember, it's supply and demand. But as the price point matches up, I think you have an opportunity. And there's still, we'll go through as the show goes on, names at defensive end, names at corner that are still out there. And I think the Browns are still in a very good position to be able to add some guys in. Now, a lot of our big board names are gone, but there are still guys that were. John Johnson was on our big board. Our guy Kevin Pierre-Louis, who we thought was our little gem, he signed a pretty surprisingly big deal already. The linebacker who we had targeted as a potential guy. So lots of names still out there, though. It's going to be fun.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that at 2:00. And in terms of our guys who are still out there waiting on deals, and this is just in regard to, and it has nothing to do with the organization, just the situation. There isn't a big market right now at wide receiver, and I do wonder if wide receiver is becoming what running back became about a decade ago. And unless you have specific traits, unless you are 6'4", 6'5", if you are Julio Jones, or you run a 4.2 like Tyreek Hill, unless you have a specific trait, there is such a glut of receivers coming into the draft every year, and the scheme that they're being asked to run in the NFL is so similar to what they're being asked to run in college that it doesn't take as long for them to get acclimated. And I do wonder if we're seeing a bit of a sea change in the wide receiver position in the NFL and the kind of what to pay that position in the NFL unless you have specific traits that make you elite, because you just have not seen that market move much, and I think we could be the start of a real trend at that position.
Which is, it's interesting. I would say there are still 2 guys that have not signed that possess elite traits. Kenny Golladay and Will Fuller. And so,
but are they?
Because of availability. I think
they elite traits? When I say elite traits, what I'm talking about is they're both really good receivers. They're really good, but they're not Tyreek Hill. They're not Julio Jones. They're not Antonio Brown in his prime or DeAndre Hopkins. They're not Odell Beckham when he signed his contract, who had elite traits. Those are really good players, but the crop that's coming in college every year is so strong. And I don't know if there's enough need to fill the amount of guys that are coming in. I like both of those guys, like both of them. But I guess what I'm saying with elite traits is almost unicorn traits, that those are the only guys who are going to get gobbled up quickly, and everybody else is going to have to kind of wait it out.
It is interesting, though, that Aguilar got paid before, now it's just time-wise, right, got paid before Will Fuller, because Will Fuller is the best vertical threat in this free agent class.
I am shocked at what they gave him. Shocked.
Same.
That they gave Nelson Aguilar. Absolutely stunned.
Good for him, though, to cash in. He went and had one good season out there, and smart by him.
Yeah, it just wasn't there consistently, and so I don't know. It's all about supply and demand and what you can produce, and there's just so much receiver talent out there. And then corner is another interesting one in terms of the run on those guys that hasn't happened. And we have our eye on Money Mitch. I mean, you're looking at Money Mitch, and you say when you do that thing when you were talking about what our defense could look like with Jacob Phillips, the 3 safeties, the 3 corners, a healthy Greedy Williams, Denzel Ward, Money Mitch. Okay. I'm interested in that. The 3 safeties, that's all of a sudden starting to look like a pretty fearsome defense.
Yeah, and I think you think about, the slot corners, and again, we'll talk about it more top of the hour, but a guy like Brian Poole, K'Wan Williams, who spent time here with the Browns, there are a lot of people who I think have an opportunity to come in and kind of bolster that room, and that's where I think the Browns are going to be looking. I think you're looking at a slot and an outside, and you could be looking as well, as we talked about up front, obviously, but the corner position has been interesting as well because the top guys don't make it to the market, or if they do, it is incredibly rare. For example, I'm surprised William Jackson. I think Jackson's going to sign quickly. I think he's next after Griffin. But there are a lot of opportunities, and there are a lot of good names still out there that are only getting cheaper. And I think this is where you get into what we talked about, because what we haven't seen so far are all those one-year deals. We're going to
Not yet, no. But those would be later.
Those are going to come, though, from this group of guys that maybe thought they were going to get big money this year. The first wave goes and they say, whoa, I'm not. I'm signing a one-year deal in the best situation for me, chasing a ring, whatever that may be. And then next year I cash in. And so that's what, William Jackson, the longer this goes, that could be something you look at. Brian Poole, as we talked about. There are some darn good corners out there still that fit that mold. And I think I think a guy like Will Fuller, I'm shocked he's not locked up already, because when he's healthy, he is dominant. And to me, the team that I would want to sign him is Green Bay, just for, first get him in the NFC. But just if you had Devontae Adams and Will Fuller out there with Aaron Rodgers, we need to be going for it, I feel like, if we're the Green Bay Packers. We were close. We need to be going for it. That's the kind of move that says to me, okay, we're going for it. But he could end up signing on a one-year deal with them to say, okay, fine, let me come here. I'll sign a one-year deal, and then I go cash in somewhere because, boy, I think I'm only going to blow up even more with Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, absolutely. And that will be the bargain hunting that is done, and Andrew very well positioned to be able to do it. I think, as you brought this up the first time a couple of weeks ago on the program, I think there will be a lot of teams that are contenders, and we certainly are one, that will benefit tremendously from these one-year deals, and you'll be able to do some bargain hunting, getting some really good players on cheap, favorable rates.
Yep.
We went out and got who we wanted in John Johnson, and some of the conversation that is had around him is certainly fun to read. This from ESPN's Field Yates. New Brown safety John Johnson is viewed as one of the smartest, instinctive safeties in the league. On top of his physical skill set, he'll immediately bring leadership, reliability, and impact plays. Huge get for Cleveland. The leadership part, he is just 25, Z.
Yep.
He is just 25. That's a big deal on the back end because, as you alluded to, our secondary is young. It is a young group of dudes, and now all of a sudden you add a guy who's not on his rookie deal, who has been given a great deal of leadership with the Rams and took it and ran with it. So that's really good to hear that going on around the league.
It is, and kind of the sentiments as you read. Was that Field Yates that you just gave that quote from? Was that who you read?
Yates had that one, yeah.
Yeah. Orlovsky, man, Andrew Berry is really, really good. This has been a universally praised move. And listen, the truth of the matter is you do not want to be a team that year after year after year is signing 1, 2, 3 first-day free agent guys. That is not the recipe for success.
Not a way to build it.
Andrew Berry has been very judicious in what he brought in. Jack Conklin last year, first-team All-Pro. Hoop, an integral part of what we did on offense, even though his stats, if you're just a fantasy football player, were not what you expected them to be. What he did is immeasurable for this team. And now you get John Johnson. So we've got 3 major day one guys under our belt in 2 years, but that number is going to stay at 1 or 0, I think, much more often going forward, because that's how you build teams that are sustainable.
That's what good teams do.
Right.
Good teams don't drop $140 million in free agency in the first day. That's not what they do. In fact, there was an image going around today on Twitter. I can't remember who did it, one of the NFL guys we follow, explaining the highest spender in free agency the last 6 years, and a couple of them made the playoffs, but the other 2 didn't. It's not a path to direct success. Remember the Dolphins at one time were the leading spender in free agency. It's rarely a direct line and a correlation to immediate winning. Gibbs' best buddy and roommate when we go to the Combine, Chris Sims, had this to say as well. I'm a big John Johnson fan. Brown's just got the best safety in the market, one of the best in the league, great range and coverage. Not a hard-hitting thumper, but you don't need to be in today's game. So pretty much universal praise. The PFF guys loved it. They had the biggest winners in free agency, us, the biggest losers, the Bengals. So that's always positive when it happens to be you benefiting in your division, and one of the teams that's trying to chase you down goes the other way.
It is. And again, I'll say something that if those reports are true, that he turned down money elsewhere to play for the Browns, that would be one of the first times in my 9 seasons with this team that that's been the case. And if you want to understand the respect that our front office has, the respect that our quarterback has, the respect that our head coach has, and the respect that now this brand of football that the Cleveland Browns are playing has in this league at this moment, that's something pretty special. That's something Browns fans to be proud of, because it's not something that we got to experience before. This is saying we are legit. We have arrived. Now, the hard work is staying there. It's one thing to get up there and get towards the top of the mountain. It's another thing to stay there, and that's what the Browns have to do. But smart, judicious moves like this with John Johnson III certainly help that. And what it says to the league that John Johnson chose to come play for the Cleveland Browns, I think is a very big deal.
It's a very big deal. And I think we've got a precursor to this with the J.J. Watt stuff, that we were a finalist for a guy who could play anywhere, who had that resume that told you the way that the Browns are viewed around the league. All right, so who else is out there? We'll have the good Dr. Z break down the defensive ends, the linebackers, perhaps some speed receivers. We mentioned Will Fuller, some corners. Who else could the Browns be interested in here as we start to go a little bit of bargain basement hunting for some big-time talent that could be cap-friendly for us going forward? We will get to that at the top of the hour. You listen to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Birth Require Experienced Counsel. Call the lawyers at Elk & Elk for a clear answer as to what happened during your child's birth. Elk & Elk, a proud partner of your Cleveland Browns. Call 1-800-ELK, Ohio, today. Okay, we've had a lot of guys signed. We went and got who we wanted in John Johnson, but there are names and positions that still need to be filled, and so for that we bring on Dr. Z for the breakdown. All right, pal, how do you want to do this? You want to start from the D-line and work backwards? Let's start there, because I think that's the one that most people have the questions about is what are we doing opposite Miles? Who's out there? Who could be a fit? Who would be kind of check the boxes of who we're looking for?
Yeah, and I think the Browns now at this point, the young guys that would be what I would call long-term running buddies for the most part are off of the board. And Shaq Barrett signing with the Bucs, staying with the Bucs. Trey Hendrickson going to the Bengals. He who shall not be named, Carl Lawson, going to the Jets for 3 years. So then who is this next group of guys that we could potentially look at here for the Browns? And I'm going to give you a couple of names. And they're mostly veterans. The first would be Carlos Dunlop. Knows this division, obviously played his best ball with the Cincinnati Bengals. The Hoff said when he's motivated, he is big, he is tough, and very, very good. He was motivated when he went to the Seahawks, and he changed their defense.
Yes, he was.
They couldn't pay him $14 million, so they cut him. He's 32. So he is a one-year kind of, you're hoping to get what Olivier Vernon gave you last year. Alden Smith, 31. Lots less tread on his tires, though, because he didn't play since 2015 and comes back and still has 5 sacks in 2020. Then you have to think, working opposite of Myles Garrett, that he's somebody who might only improve going forward. So he's another name that's out there from that kind of group. You've got some other names. Now, this is one, and I don't know how to pronounce it perfectly, so I'll try. But Ifede Odingbo, who was with the Vikings, he's a restricted free agent. He had 7 sacks in 2019 for the Vikings when Kevin Stefanski would have still been there. He only had 3.5 last year. Kerry Hyder, 30. He came in for all the Niners DNs last year who got hurt. He had 8.5 sacks. So the Niners connection, the Browns certainly would know. Joe Woods would be able to say, okay, what did we think there if he's somebody that's possible? Tack McKinley, a name that we had talked about last year, former first-round pick, 25. He would be very much a reclamation project and somebody that you're trying to get the best ball out of. So those are some of the names that are there on the outside. Hassan Reddick would be another one who probably of the guys that is left had the best resume last year. He had that monster, 5-sack game that he had with the Cardinals.
That's right.
But those are the guys really at this point that are left.
And Reddick's younger.
There.
Reddick's just 26, isn't he?
Yes.
Yeah, young guy, yeah.
26. So those are some of the names that are out there in that kind of, when you're looking at that edge group. There aren't the guys that would be at the very, very top. It's much more guys that I think you would feel are very solid, stop gaps for you. And Reddick is an interesting one just because of his age relative to the others. The other name out there is, Jadeveon Clowney is out there. He's somebody that he's only 28.
Sure.
Browns have been interested in the past. Do you say, okay, we'll throw a 1-year deal at Jadeveon Clowney? Clowney, come play opposite Myles Garrett. Come chase a ring. And you have a chance to maybe go cash in big somewhere next year. So those are the names that I think are really the names that are in the mix still at this point, and really maybe kind of the only names that are the ones that are kind of in the mix at this point for the Browns. One other one I'll throw out there because I didn't mention this one earlier, and this is one that I'm actually starting to like, is Melvin Ingram.
Okay.
Melvin Ingram did great work opposite Joey Bosa.
Chargers.
Sure, some injuries. Last year, his numbers were not great. He is the perfect kind of, I'm going to sign a 1-year deal to prove my worth kind of guy. And Melvin Ingram was an incredibly productive pass rusher prior to last season. So those are the names that I think that you could be looking at if you're the Browns at this point at the defensive end position, which I think means you could get a pretty good player at a very good price at this point.
A lot of options there.
Still
lots
of
lot
options. It feels like there aren't because,
options.
You lock in and you say, this is who we're getting, and we all, we get excited about certain people, Carl Lawson, et cetera, and then they're gone. And that happens. That happens every year in free agency. You can't get them all. but there are still a lot of good options for the Browns at that defensive end position.
There sure is. And the other thing that's out there, and we're not in the business of doing this right now, but there is also the potential for trade out there.
Sure.
And there could be some disgruntled guys. And the other thing, Daniil Hunter comes to mind, obviously, as he wants a new deal with the Vikings after opting out last year. Another name to to remember is there will be cut downs in May. You will see guys that are cut in May that can be very, very talented. We've done this before where we've entertained these guys in May. So there are other opportunities here to attack this position. At linebacker, some names there. Do you think that is some waters that we will swim in here in the next couple of days? I'm sure I think the answer is, if the price is right, you'll swim in any waters on the defensive side of the ball.
I think that's a very accurate statement that you just made, that you would be willing to jump into certain, things at any level of the defense. That's where we knew we needed a lot of help, and that could mean, on one hand, that could mean you're bringing back a guy like B.J. Goodson, who played very well for you in early down roles. I think the fact that you've gotten a safety makes it a little bit less important that the linebacker you bring in is necessarily a cover linebacker. And the reason I say that is I think they want Jacob Phillips to get there. Taki showed a lot of promise this year. Mack did a good job in the run game. We're not going to play three linebackers a lot. I think it's possible we play one linebacker quite a bit this year, three safeties, three corners in some passing situations. So the one name that's been linked to the Browns that we've seen a lot of is Denzel Perryman. And now Denzel Perryman is a great run-stopping linebacker. He is one of, as Pro Football Focus says, few players are better downhill thumpers than Perriman. It's unfortunate for him. It's 2021, not 1985. Now, he was very good against the run last year, but he only played 316 snaps. He was solid against the coverage, but he is a physical guy. And so could the Browns be looking, another Charger here, could the Browns be looking to bring in somebody that is a thumper for the early downs to complement and give some strength to that defense, despite the fact that you're looking at, having more safeties on the field? Do you want somebody in that role in your defense? Now, Taki could be that guy, but he's not really as big, as a guy in the middle of your defense. Perriman, 5'11", 240, former second-round pick back in 2015. Good player. He would bring you that stability, leadership. Mike linebacker, knows how to play the position. So that's an interesting one. I didn't have him on the initial list because he wasn't as good in coverage as we're talking about a guy like Jayon Brown, who is, a coverage-oriented guy, top 10 cover linebacker per Pro Football Focus, who played with the Titans last year. I wouldn't expect them to break the bank, and I think if they feel that they can get a thumper and a leader at a good price, they would. Somebody that would do what B.J. Goodson did for the team last year, but hopefully at a little bit of a higher level while your young guy, Jacob Phillips, comes along. Now, the question is, if you were to invest in a guy like Perriman, Phillips, everybody keeps talking about, that's the one they expect to make the leap. So would the Browns be in on that?
He showed you signs. Yeah.
But then you have Taki as well. You've got Mack Wilson. We've been linked to Zaven Collins, who's not a pure edge rusher. He's much more of an Anthony Barr, where he can rush the passer but also play in space and be long and rangy. So is there even enough room for all of those guys if you were to sign a Perriman and draft a Collins? I don't know the answer to that. I would say probably not.
Probably not. And I would wonder, as we go to the secondary, and you think certainly you'd be out there looking at corner, but you have to think, right now you have four safeties. If you're going to play three, you're going to need to add to that room as well.
Right.
Not necessarily in free agency, more likely the draft, but you see what I mean? Like, if you're going to play three safeties a lot, then you can't have four of them. You need to have 5 or 6 of them.
Right, and you would have – I think you're looking at your corners from that standpoint. I think you're looking inside. We talked about Troy Hill with the Rams that obviously John Johnson could give his assessment of with inside-outside versatility. We're talking about Brian Poole, great inside corner. K'Wan Williams, excellent nickel corner. Mike Hilton, who was a nickel corner for the Steelers, a good nickel as well. Desmond King. There are good options inside, and it would be my guess that the Browns would also want to look at a veteran outside. And Money Mitch obviously would be a great one to be able to bring back, but you've got to balance. You still need your corners. I think you're going to have 6 DBs on the field in passing situations quite a bit. That's just my sense of it. So, and at this point, with Greedy, he's coming back, but right now it seems that you can count on Greedy and Denzel or Denzel missing a couple games every year. That's just until they can put together 16-game seasons, we haven't seen it yet. And so I think getting an outside corner that you feel comfortable starting is important. You also need a guy that can be your starting slot, because I don't think, maybe that Grant is going to be your every down nickel, or that John Johnson would be in certain circumstances your every down nickel, the way that a team would use the Honey Badger in that fashion. I still think you're going to need a real true nickel on this team.
Yeah, I would think so as well. It's going to be a fascinating next couple of days here to see where this goes, and it might be something that plays out over the course of weeks, not days. We will go around the league with Gibbe coming up next. Our good buddy Dan Graziano will join us in about 15 minutes from now. You listen to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Beau Bishop here for my friends at Weather Seal Home Services. You need a roof replacement? Would you like to replace your roof for the final time? Well, you can. It's the benefit of choosing a metal roof from Weather Seal. Metal roof technology, materials, styles, and colors have improved significantly. They are beautiful. They are nearly indestructible, and with Weather Seal, they are affordable. Plus, with a new metal roof, Weather Seal includes 6-inch gutter upgrades. It's up to 7 years and 0 interest financing on that, guys. It's an unbeatable deal. Call my guys, 877-351-SEAL, or visit weathersealhomeservices.com for more. And with that, we go around the league, and that means, hello, Gibbe.
Greetings and salutations, gentlemen. Welcome to Tuesday.
How are you, buddy?
Hey, It's great, man. All's well.
Gibbe's doing great. We're
Yeah.
going to get the best of Gibbe.
Is this your last day? Because you probably took time for St. Patty's Day.
Yeah, and a little trip. Well,
Oh.
a little golf trip
Oh.
to Myrtile.
Oh, gosh. How decadent. Myrtile. You and Kay Powers. Myrtile.
The hooligans descending on Myrtile. Hide the women and children.
My gosh.
Jeez,
Decadent.
Louise.
Just decadence.
We found a service that delivers kegs to the house. That's just
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
That tells you where you're at.
Yep, buckle up.
Gibby, are you Irish at all?
Yes.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Yeah.
I felt, Mike, I was going to say, even if you were zero, I think you would be, somebody would say, I'm Irish today, and wear a shirt that says, Kiss Me, I'm Irish. That's my guess.
There is a part of me that's a little sad I will not be here tomorrow for St. Patty's Day because I feel like the entire city of Cleveland is reopening tomorrow. Starting at,
like it.
I'm a big kegs and eggs guy. Get in at 6 a.m.
Oh,
Let's do shots
sure.
of JMO, eat some green eggs. Let's go.
Wow.
Little
No
potato
Bushmills.
pancake.
Go for the Jameson.
Build a little
Very good.
base. Got to pace yourself.
Build a little base.
Got to build a base.
Gibbe.
Let's ask
great,
you a few
so
questions based on the first 25 hours, 26 hours now of legal tampering. Question number 1, guys. How much better are the New England Patriots? How many more wins do you think all of their moves have given them?
What were they
What
last
were
year?
they last year?
7 and 9?
6 and 10?
I knew
7
you were
and
going to
9?
ask that question.
Somewhere in that?
Looking. Stand by.
I think their ceiling is 9 and 7.
So
9 and 7 is the
last
ceiling.
year they went 7 and 9.
I think they're
Okay.
2 wins
So I think
better.
they're 2 wins better at best.
Which is, I mean.
But they're
again,
not contenders, and they're not. I don't think they're not even close to Buffalo, and I think they're battling with Miami. Depends if Miami pulls off the Deshaun Watson deal or not. But so they're competitive. They're not going to get run, and I think they're trying to make the best of a tough spot, and I think they probably feel the pressure of Brady winning a Super Bowl and setting up to win another one, and going, I don't want to sit out another one at 7 and 9. Let's get in the dance.
Right. Let's go to the playoffs. Let's make sure that we are there. That's exactly what I think they were thinking. They aren't a Super Bowl contender, but it makes you wonder with all this money, what are they doing with Stephon Gilmore? Because it doesn't make sense. They feel like they're going all in, so it doesn't make sense to me that they would trade Stephon Gilmore at this point.
No, and I also don't like I was saying earlier when we were talking about them, in order for this to really work, because you had mentioned a Cam being good with Steve Smith. That was a long time ago. He hasn't had that for a while. I remember he played here 3 years ago, and he wasn't the same then. And this is 3 years later from that. So that's an incredible amount of wear and tear that's been on his body. They need to have a star running back to stand next to him if they're going to do it this way. If they're going to run read option and have Cam running it and throwing it to tight ends and pulling it and keeping it and being a run threat, then they've got to give him a back to stand next to him to go make defensive ends and outside linebackers think. Have to. Because they don't have anybody now that's going to be a threat back there. I wonder if Curtis Samuel could be in play for them, and maybe they'll go try and add him to the roster as kind of a Swiss Army knife offensively. But they're not that scary to me offensively.
No, they need to have somebody that – and listen, this draft you can certainly add somebody who's pretty –
Yeah.
It'd be pretty easy if that's what they decide to do with their first-round pick. Now, we would say, what are you doing using a first-round pick on a running back build? But nonetheless, they might do it.
Did it with Sony Michel. How'd that
Right.
work?
Lawrence Maroney.
Sony Michel did not work. As a guy that tried year in and year out to put him on my fantasy team, he yielded bupkis.
He had a couple of good,
I think
good seasons.
Damian Harris
playoffs,
is probably Damian Harris out of Alabama, who's on their roster, gave him moments, but they wouldn't stick with him last year. So
No.
it's strange.
No.
I don't know.
Wasn't
Would they
he a
go for
second-round
Najee
pick?
Harris or something like that?
So they just
That
I don't know.
That
But he was
position
really
in
good at
his
Bama.
offense is always by committee, I feel.
too many people. Rex Burkhead sometimes.
Guys,
James
he
White.
drafted 2 tight ends 2 years ago and just signed 2 tight ends in free agency.
Yep.
He's not a great drafter. I mean, let's be honest.
Think about his receivers that he's drafted. It's been
It's been a
dreadful.
disaster.
They drafted N'Keal Harry in
Yeah.
the first round a couple years ago, and they just signed 2 receivers in free agency. And they're playing 2
Right,
tight
and
ends.
they're
so
going to talk
not
that
playing,
they're going to trade him.
Right. They're not playing 3 receivers out there. Diana Rossini just tweeted this out at 2:19. Just spoke to a free agent wide receiver to find out what's going on with all the receivers still unsigned. He said, quote, the wide receiver market is really bad right now. And I think it goes to your point earlier. The draft last year was loaded. The draft this year is loaded. And as teams go in college to more, it just feels like there are always running backs who are now good in the space game and who are explosive, and there are always receivers available because that's what college football is.
No, it's what the NFL is.
Well, yeah.
College football has been playing this game for a long time, and now the NFL is playing the same offensive philosophy as college football, getting athletes in space, so that it's just not as hard to jump in right away and play receiver and be elite at it.
No.
I mean, Jefferson was not the best receiver at LSU. Jamar Chase was. And Justin Jefferson was ridiculous, broke Randy Moss's records at Minnesota. So that tells you that's just one example, but there are countless of them. And why would you pay somebody who does not have elite traits elite money? It's just, I think it's going to dry up. I think there will be 5 or 6 guys around the league who get the big money, elite money. But this idea of paying $15, $16 million to a receiver who's not Tyreek Hill, who's not Julio Jones, who's not A.J. Green in his prime, Antonio Brown, Hopkins in their prime, that's done. I don't think you'll see that anymore.
Agreed.
Question number 2, guys. Of all the Tampa Bay guys who have been re-signed by the Super Bowl champs, which one is the most important piece? Godwin, Barrett, Levante David, Rob Gronkowski. Zegura, we'll start with you.
Barrett.
Go ahead.
I think he just plays the most important position. Levante David would be second for me. Third would be Godwin because I think they could have had Antonio Brown in that role, and they have young players Scotty Miller, and they have Tyler Johnson. They've got a pretty good receiving core. But when you look at, and then Gronk, okay, Gronk was fun, great Super Bowl performance. He's selling NFTs out there, making a fortune, so good for him. But yeah, he is certainly. They gave him a career thank you, $10 million, which is pretty remarkable.
Yeah, you have the order right. I think the difference between David and Barrett is relatively small, but because I think they both have to be there for it to work. You have to have 2 of those linebackers who can run. They do. And then you have to have 2 of those defensive ends, and they do. And so those guys are almost Barrett just because the position's more important, but those guys are almost 1 and 1A.
Beau, we'll start with you. The one player you are happiest is out of the AFC North. Allegedly, because obviously everything's not finalized till 4 o'clock on Wednesday.
Well, it's kind of a trick question because I wish he would have stayed in the AFC North, and we loved Lawson, and I think he would have been a long-time running mate for Miles. But if he's not going to play for us, I'm glad he's not playing in Cincinnati because I think he's a really good player. And I think he's a better player than Dupree. I think he's a better player than Hendrickson. And I think it's so funny. I was talking to Ben Baby about this last week, who covers the Bengals for ESPN, and he said that the Bengals were really bothered by his lack of sack numbers. And I thought, wow, that's their thinking. They're not taking into account who Hendrickson's playing opposite of, and they're not taking into account the amount of times that Lawson is disruptive around the quarterback.
Yeah, his hit rate,
and they're more worried
rate.
about the fact that he couldn't get home, and weren't looking at hit. So that maybe was a little window into everything. So I guess I'm glad he's out of the division. I just wish it was here.
That's like somebody looking at and just judging baseball players based on the most mundane statistics that have been around since the 1950s. Like, they've come up with much better ways to assess the impact,
Only home
impact
runs.
Of a baseball player, and I think they've done a good job with that in football as well. I'm happy. You think about our division and you think about our offense and the fact that we're bringing it back, and 3 of the better young pass rushers in this division, and I would say outside of our own Myles Garrett, 3 of the top 4 pass rushers in our division are no longer in our division. Carl Lawson is gone. Matt Judon is gone. Bud Dupree is gone. And Bud Dupree, while people are saying he may be limited, this, that, whatever, in that defense, opposite T.J. Watt, he was damn good. And the physicality that those 2 on the end brought, and that you saw it back in week 6. Now, we evolved a lot as a football team since then, but they just brought a different level together. And so for him to be gone, that changes things. I like Alex Highsmith too, and I know the Steelers do. He's not the same guy as Bud Dupree, at least not yet. Could he become? Maybe, but not yet. The Bengals, that's a swap out, but they also lost Dunlop on the other side, right? So, and then you think about the Ravens to go from Judon and Ngakoue, and now Ngakoue gave them nothing. Let's be perfectly clear about that.
Nothing. That was shocking.
Shocking. There's something – I'm surprised he got as much money as he did, to be honest with you. I mean, when you get traded from the Vikings and the Ravens are not interested and you end up getting big money in Vegas, good for him. But you have, Judon's a stud. Dupree was a stud, and Lawson's a stud. They're all out of our division.
Yep.
That's good for us.
Yep.
All right, we have like 30 seconds, so quick answers from both of you. Who starts right now the Saints season opener? Jameis Winston, Taysom Hill, or other? Bishop.
Taysom. Peyton's
Zegura.
stubbornness. Taysom.
Jameis. I mean, they just gave Taysom Hill the most fake contract in the history of contracts, which is
They really
Yes, they
ridiculous.
did.
Remarkably.
It's got to be. It's got to be Jameis. I mean, what are we trying to play
I would
here?
think so. I don't know. He's been doing it for a long time with Taysom Hill. I think he really, clearly he's really enamored with him.
It's enough.
We'll ask Graziano that and also his impressions of early free agency when he joins us coming up next, our good buddy Dan Graziano. You listen to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. If you live and breathe football, you know sometimes keeping your priorities straight can be a challenge. Unfortunately, the same can be true when you gamble. If your gambling is affecting other parts of your life, get help. Get tips and responsible gambling at keepitfunohio.com. And with that, we head out on the Fifth Third Money Line for a visit with one of our all-time great friends, the great Dan Graziano, ESPN NFL insider. He joins on the Fifth Third Money Line. Dan, you recently, how many days in a row you done the Peloton now, man, before we get into all the free agents?
Oh, geez. So, well, it was, what was it, the end of the year was 304, and then however many days there have been this year. What's that, about 1,000? Yeah,
What
I don't
was
know.
the what was the closest
like
you ever came to saying, not today?
I don't know, man. It probably early in the streak. I mean, once you get a streak like this, it's kind of its own motivation, you know. So no, I mean, to the point where, you know, if I'm going to be out all day, I'll wake up an hour early. So yeah, I'm kind of hooked. I don't know. That's awesome. Maybe I should start getting some money for it. Yeah,
incredible. Let me ask you this as a fellow Peloton owner. Are you talking strictly bike, or are you counting doing everything?
No.
You're on the bike every day?
So, because we have the app, and so we'll do like the strength workouts.
Sure.
You know, there are days where I don't do the bike and I just do the strength.
Okay.
So, I mean, you know.
No, that makes a lot more sense. The bike, to me, it got to the point when I was doing it all the time, and I kept pushing myself to, because you want to get your PR every time. It just got to the point where I was like, what am I doing? Like, this is not who I want to be anymore. I'm like throwing up on. I'm like, what am I doing? The strength workouts I really like, though. I really enjoy those.
Yeah, and mix it in. Like I used to be a runner, but then my left knee retired, and but being a runner, I ran marathons. So you build in those rest days, those easier days, just to make sure that you know, you don't burn out, and that's sort of. Yeah, it's been good. Man, I lost 32 pounds last year. And,
awesome.
That's
congrats.
You know, obviously, wasn't going to the gym. So, yeah, it's been good.
That's a great job. All right, Dan. So the Patriots had some money to spend, buddy.
Yes. I mean, yes. They and a lot of holes to fill, by the way. Like, that's the thing. Like, it's not just gluttony. Like, this was a hollowed-out roster that needed a lot of help. And I think, you know, Bill Belichick is always about finding value. So he says, all right, we got a lot of holes, we got a lot of cap space, and we've got a market where the cap has gone down, and maybe there's not going to be as much spending as usual. Maybe some of these guys we're going to be able to get at prices we like. So let's go for it. And, man, has he done just that. So, I mean, he got the top two tight ends on the market. I mean, like that's – and then obviously help on defense for the pass rush, et cetera, so everywhere. But, honestly, it's kind of an indictment of how poorly they've drafted in recent years, because they haven't really been able to restock the roster that way, which is the way everyone would prefer.
Yeah, that's kind of the one little thing that often gets brushed off due to the greatness of the New England Patriots, is they have struggled on draft day, and we're seeing them try to fix some of those ills in free agency today. All right, Dan, let's talk Browns quickly. John Johnson, the big signing for Andrew Berry, and so far the only signing. We'll ask about what else you think is maybe in the hopper, but what did you make of that move to get John Johnson here for defensive coordinator Joe Woods?
Well, I just think it fits in a lot of important ways. I mean, obviously they need help at the position. I mean, just talking to people there heading into the offseason, it seemed like the goal was to just get better at every level of the defense, and this helps them on the back end. He's a great guy and teammate, and I mean, I just think he helps in so many ways. He'll help as a player and as a just in terms of establishing the kind of, or continuing to establish the kind of culture that Stefanski wants to establish there. I think that's a really strong signing, and now I think they sit back and they look at, you know, what is the right fit and the right value in terms of the defensive line, you know, replacing Olivier Vernon's production. What is the right fit and value at linebacker, at cornerback? Because remember, I mean, a big part of this offseason and maybe next offseason is, you know, some high-profile extensions, right? You got to get Baker Mayfield locked up, Nick Chubb, you got to get Denzel Ward. So they need to hold on to some money and some cap space for that as well. So I think it's about finding the right fit and the right buy, if you will, at this point for them on defense. But they still got a lot of options and a lot of flexibility.
And, Dan, the word that comes to mind a little bit from our vantage point, and it's different than what we've maybe experienced in the past, is discipline. And we think that there are numbers that Andrew Berry and Paul DePodesta and certainly Kevin Stefanski are comfortable paying defensive ends, and that the threshold was probably crossed in this early run on at the position where you saw guys making a lot of guaranteed money. There were all sorts of reports that we were in on a bunch of these guys, but perhaps just discipline to stay at a number kept you from signing guys. Your impressions of now the second off season, is it just getting started, of course, for Andrew Berry here in Cleveland and his approach?
It just seems like things are working, right? I mean, proof is in the pudding, obviously, with the record and the performance in the postseason. Yeah, I just, it's good to see. And I think, you guys have been through so many years of instability there and turnover. And I think it's got to be really refreshing if you're a Browns fan, if you're somebody who works in that building, to feel good about the process, right? And I mean, it's no offense to anybody who's there. I'm sure everybody tried their best, but it wasn't working. And short, small sample size here, it just seems like you can feel good about the way that people in charge are executing the program right now. And I think that's, it's borne out in the results. So, yeah, I think they're focused, right? And they're calculated, and they're saying, look, we like where we are on offense. We spent big on the offensive line last year. We have receivers we like. We have running backs we like. We have tight ends we like. There's depth. So let's build up that defense. And now all of a sudden, we really have something potentially special.
Dan, any names for Browns fans to keep an eye on as they try to do things either in defensive line, linebacker, or cornerback rooms here in addition to John Johnson?
I mean, I think the names have been out there. I don't know. I mean, I guess I could be wrong, right? Like they could end up with one of the higher profile edge rush guys like a Hassan Reddick, if the price gets to where they need it to be. But a lot of these guys are, scheme dependent, right? Like a team that liked Trey Hendrickson might not have liked Bud Dupree, right? Because just different kind of pass rushers, different kind of schemes. So I think you have to look at, when you're the Browns, you got to look at what you have and what you need. So you're probably going to want to look at someone who's a little bit like Olivier Vernon as a pass rusher, as a sort of a defensive end, outside linebacker kind of type. And they're out there. I mean, it is a buyer's market, whether it's somebody like a veteran, I don't think they're going to go for somebody like Clowney, but I guess it's possible. Trent Murphy from Buffalo, a veteran guy like that, or a younger player, who could help. I'd be throwing names against the wall, honestly. I kind of started to there. So, yeah, I think it's just a matter of what fits.
Dan, what do you, the thing that you got to do first in the NFL is you got to win your division, and we like the spot we're in to contend for that and to be one of the favorites in the division going into next year, certainly. You look at the moves that were made. Pittsburgh obviously losing Bud Dupree. Another year on Ben Roethlisberger certainly adds up to that, and that didn't end well last year with him in terms of what was going on with his arm. The Ravens lose a couple of pass rushers. Judon's a big one, but they get Zeitler, and we really like that signing. The Bengals was a little puzzling for us. What do you make of what's happened so far in the AFC North here in the offseason?
Well, we know Pittsburgh is strapped, right? I mean, the cap space issue has been well documented, and they're not going to be able to add pieces. And, in fact, they're losing them. They lose Dupree. They're going to lose Juju Smith-Schuster, lose some offensive linemen. There's going to be a lot of pressure on Ben Roethlisberger and Mike Tomlin to make something out of a bit of a diminished roster there in Pittsburgh. Don't bet against them. Mike Tomlin has as many losing seasons as an NFL head coach as you and I do. So it's not a good bet to bet against him. But it's reasonable to say that team has a chance to take a step backwards. Baltimore, another very dangerous team, another very accomplished coaching staff. Obviously didn't have the year they wanted to have last year, but, man, they looked good toward the end. And I think, you say they lost pass rushers. I feel like Baltimore loses pass rushers every offseason and then still manages to have a great defense. So they're a team that does a good job regenerating and finding value in the market. So, and then the Bengals, right, you let go of Carl Lawson, you sign Trey Hendrickson. You're going to let go of William Jackson, you sign Chidobe Awuzie. Why not keep your own guys, I wonder.
Right.
But I think with the Bengals, what we're looking at right now is what do they do in terms of offensive line and protection for Joe Burrow, because that really has to be the focus of their offseason. And right now we haven't necessarily seen them dive in there. There's obviously plenty of time. I mean, geez, guys, the league year doesn't begin for another 25 hours. So there's definitely time to do it. But it looks like it should be a tough division. If Burrow comes back healthy, I think the Bengals, even if they're not a top team, are not going to be a fun team to play. So, yes, I like where the Browns sit as well, but, you'd like them a lot better if you were in the NFC East.
Do you think? Yes, I think we'd all like to be right there. Do you think that we're getting to the point now? And I know it's crazy just how quickly these things go, but that we thought there'd be so many one-year deals. Do you think we're getting to that point towards the end of this week, maybe early into next week, that you'll start to see more of those rumored one-year deals as guys sign with the hopes of cashing in next year's free agency when the money should be a lot better?
It's possible, but you know what? We heard so much doom and gloom about the market and what the prices were going to be, and then late last night when you circled back with people, they were saying, you know what? The pass rushers, they're a little better than we thought. I mean, we were looking at 13, 14 million a year projected for some of these guys, and some of them got into the 15, 16, even 17 range. So they did well enough that Denver, was trying to get Von Miller to take a pay cut from 18, and he told them no, and so they backed down and kept him at 18. So, I think it's possible, and I think, it makes sense. And I'm sure some guys will look at it and say, this is the right idea for me to take the one-year deal and hit the market again. But, if you find the right team making the right kind of commitment, the right kind of guarantees, 2-year payout, you're going to see guys jump at it just like usual. So we'll see. Wide receiver, real slow right now.
Yeah.
So let's see how that market shakes out and who ends up spending, if anyone, at the wide receiver position. Maybe that's the position where you see guys do that one-year deal thing, and maybe some of the corners that are left over, although Shaquille Griffin didn't, and he signed today with Jacksonville. So maybe there's not as much as there would have been in a normal year, but maybe a little more than some of the major skeptics might have thought there was going to be.
Yeah, Dan, we were kind of talking about this earlier on the receivers. We're kind of wondering if that position maybe is starting to sort of turn into running back, where unless you have elite traits, there just won't be that big money for you, and that everybody else, and that can be really good guys like Kenny Golladay or Will Fuller, who have some things that are really, really special, but they aren't totally elite traits. If those guys have a tough time finding a home,
or they come with some warts, right? Like Kenny Golladay had an injury problem this year. Will Fuller has always had injury problems, and then now is still serving a suspension. He's going to miss the first game of the season, right? Juju Smith-Schuster has been better as a slot receiver, and maybe hasn't progressed since his rookie year, and I think teams are concerned about that too. Look at it this way. The Patriots signed Hunter Henry after they already signed Jonnu Smith. There were other teams in on Hunter Henry that have been looking at receivers and haven't been thrilled with what they saw. So you look, I think the Patriots looked at it this way, and some other teams as well. The wide receiver group is not dazzling us. So maybe the right thing is to look at Hunter Henry, who, yes, is a tight end, but can do a lot of other things. He can play like a wide receiver. Maybe bring him in because he's the better guy to spend money on, can do more things for you, comes with fewer concerns. And that may be why he ended up getting that deal with the Patriots, even after they had made the big deal yesterday for Jonnu.
Dan, you're the best, pal. Appreciate you a great deal. Thanks for giving us a little bit of your time today.
Guys, I appreciate you. Thank you very much. Take care.
All right, that is a great Dan Graziano. He is one of the great friends of the program, and all guests who appear on Cleveland Browns Daily do so via the Fifth Third Money Line, Fifth Third Bank, making the Cleveland Browns Daily a Fifth Third better.
Real quickly, Mike Hilton, the nickel cornerback from the Steelers, has signed with the Bengals per multiple reports. And Josina Anderson tweeting out, I just heard the Browns are trying to reel in Takk McKinley per source. We'll talk about Takk McKinley when we come back.
You're listening to 850 ESPN Cleveland. Welcome back into Cleveland Browns Daily. This from Jonathan Jones of CBS Sports. The Browns are reportedly signing Mckinley. Per source, it's a one-year deal that could reach more than $4 million. If that name is familiar from more than just today, this is a guy we talked about a lot last year, Z, as a guy that did we claim him? I remember talking about him a lot on the program.
I think 3 different times we tried. The Falcons cut him. Or the Falcons waived him. I think we tried. The Bengals got him because they were at the top of the list at the time. He failed a physical there. We tried, but the Raiders were ahead of us. They claimed him, and so he ended up with the Raiders. Or maybe there was one other step in there between, but he ended up with the Raiders, had 1 sack. He's a former first-round pick of the Falcons in 2017 out of UCLA. In his first 2 seasons in the NFL, he registered 14 sacks those first 2 seasons. Since then, a little bit of a struggle. Only the last couple of seasons, he has only registered 5 sacks. But in 2019, 4 sacks, 19 hurries, 10 hits, a total of 33 pressures for Mckinley in that season, despite being on only 298 pass rushes. So you think about 33 pressures, 298. That's good. This is a guy that's had plus production, but it's a reclamation at this point. He obviously some issues that happened in Atlanta. The Browns were interested for a while in bringing him here, and this is going to be obviously a 1-year prove it. And you think about the Browns. What do we talk about? First rounders on a 1-year type of a prove it deal. You're banking on the talent. You're saying, okay, he's been pretty good on the outside, and Jake Trotter saying can confirm the Browns are signing former Raiders defensive end Mckinley per source at Jay Jones First. So again, talent. You're hoping that you can get much more of him opposite Myles Garrett now that he is here and get back to the guy that averaged 7 sacks a season in his first 2 years in the NFL in a 4-3, a similar style defense for the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, and the other thing I would say is it's not like you only need one guy. You're going to need a couple at defensive end. Remember, we cut Adrian Claiborne, too. It's not just Olivier Vernon. There's no Adrian Claiborne anymore either. So you need a couple of these guys in there. This is a high-end ceiling guy who certainly the talent is there, and you hope that it clicks and it registers playing opposite Myles. But this does not, I don't think in any way, and you correct me if I'm wrong, Z, as you would know, this would not preclude them from going and getting another defensive end of higher regard to put in the building as well. It's a guy who's in there, depth. And maybe you strike gold with a guy with a high ceiling on the talent side. Exactly.
A lot of talent. You'll give him an opportunity to compete for playing time, but I do not think the Browns would be done at the edge rusher position. Now your room would look like Myles Garrett, Mckinley, Porter Gustin, Curtis Weaver. I still think there certainly is room for a veteran to come into that mix, or even for a high draft pick to come into that mix. But Mckinley, a lot of talent, and you're saying, okay, we want to have 3 pass rushers at all times. Mckinley could end up being that sub-package third pass rusher for you in this season. It just gives you another option there. But again, this is somebody that was taken in the first round of the NFL draft. This is a guy who came out in his first 2 seasons and had 14 sacks. So he has talent. He can be productive in the National Football League. It's going to be on Mckinley to get that out of himself, and it's going to be on the Cleveland Browns and their coaching staff, and we've got a great one on the D-line and Chris Kiffin to get the best out of him too. But you've got talent. You got a good piece of clay. It's a no-risk, potentially high upside signing. And sure, why not give a guy with that kind of pedigree an opportunity and see what he can do in your defense opposite Myles Garrett?
And just 25 years of age. So there's the other thing that you look for is all of these guys that we signed, going back to Ronnie last year, John Johnson, Mckinley, they're between ages 24 and 26. That's who Andrew Berry looks for. That's who he's signing, and that's who he brings in here with Tech.
1 minute.
This is a nice little position piece here, and it's good to get it in before the end of the show. We appreciate that a great deal, reportedly.
Yes, that is a nice reportedly to come in here while we are still on the air. So kudos to everybody who worked to get that happen. Again, I think, look at this more of the Claiborne replacement than the Vernon replacement.
Yes.
And a high upside Claiborne replacement.
That's kind of where I was heading with it as well. So I think that's kind of the way that goes, and you hope that you strike gold with a young player. Going to be a fun next couple of days. We'll continue to keep you posted on all of it right here on Cleveland Browns.